I find that levels of success in almost any industry or area correlate to a person asking great questions. In some cases, they seem absurd. In fact, the hallmark, in a way, of great questions is that they sound completely ridiculous. So someone might ask, like Peter Thiel, why can't you achieve your 10-year goals in the next 6 months? As a thought exercise, that's a good question to answer for yourself. And these types of questions come up surprisingly often with very, very impressive folks, whether it's in business, military, entertainment, or otherwise. And the way you can get better at questions is by studying interviews in part. So I studied Larry King, I studied Charlie Rose, I studied Terry Gross, I studied go down the list. I studied Tony Robbins, who does in-person, one-on-one interventions at his events in front of 10,000, 5,000 people. And he's just genius with how he uses questions to like pattern interrupt and grab someone's attention and divert them in a more productive direction. Now, why is that relevant? It's relevant because thinking is the process of asking questions. You're asking yourself questions and then you're answering them in your own head. So if you get better at asking other people questions, you get better at asking yourself questions, which means you're improving your thought performance and level of thinking.
I knew I was wired to be excited about business. How or why, I don't know, but and there's certain guys that have the genetics to jump out of the gym, right? There's certain guys, that, when they golf, they have the muscle memory and the discipline. Dirk Nowitzki may not be the most talented guy in the NBA, but his discipline and his focus to do what's necessary to be successful, he's willing to do, and combine it with being 7 feet tall and being skilled, it makes him an amazing basketball player. So it's understanding what your skill set is, finding the right place to use those skills, and then going for it. Will that make you 250 grand? It depends if you pick the right industry. But whatever industry you pick, if you outwork everybody, if you try to be a little smarter than everybody, if you try to be a better salesperson than everybody, if you try to be better prepared than everybody, you've got your best chance. Because if you don't do it and somebody else does, I have the saying, work like someone's trying to take it all away from you. I actually work like someone's spending 24 hours, working 24 hours to take it all away from you. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
And I remember asking my dad I wanted new basketball shoes because I was a basketball junkie back then. He's like, well, your shoes work. If you want a new pair of tennis shoes, you have to go out there and get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old, and it just so happens he was playing poker with his buddies, and one of his buddies was like, well, I got a job for you. I've got these garbage bags that we distribute. You can sell them door to door. I'm like, okay. And it was when I was selling them and realizing that I liked to sell and that I could sell, and that I recognized that selling was about providing a service and creating value for people, that I knew that I would literally back then, I knew that I could always succeed. I remember I was 16, I think, when I started a stamp company and started going to stamp shows and trade shows and just working a little bit harder than other people and trading up from one stamp to the next. I remember one time I started with a quarter and bought a stamp and left with $50, thinking, hey, if I could do this, I could do anything. And it's not that everything worked. I failed a lot, but I never ever felt like I wouldn't be able to work hard enough to.
Well, you know what? People do look at me and see me as creative because I've written so many books, and I am curious. But when I started off in college, in my freshman psych class, they gave us a test for each student to take on creativity. And there were 17 in that class. I can remember it well. And I was at the bottom of the class on creativity. I was like number 17 out of 17. And what the teacher posted the scores. And so, I saw how bad I was. And then I really felt bad, not only because I wasn't creative, but I was going to go pastor, I was going to go into ministry, I was going to teach, I was going to do sermons. And then I got to thinking to myself, I'm going to be another boring preacher. And that just gripped me. I thought, this is going to be awful. I'm going to bore people all my life, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to ask them to pay while they hear me. This is an awful deal. So, and so two things I did. And I talk about it in the book. One is I started filing. I started taking thoughts and quotes. And the reason I started doing that is I thought, if I'm not going to be good at what I say, I need to quote somebody that is good. And so I started filing things that other people would say. So I'd go around and I'd say, well, Ken said, you know what I mean? And Joe said, and Susie said. And so that at least I would be a little bit more interested. And that's how it started. But the big breakthrough I had was, and this will help everyone. How many of you would like to be more creative? Let me see your hands, okay? How many of you would like to just absolutely have an imagination that just took you to a new level? You know what I'm saying? Okay. How many of you already have that because you're on drugs? Okay. Well, here's the key. This will work for you. I promise it'll work for you because it worked for me. I made a major change in my early 30s from just having answers and being a leader that just had to cast vision, show everybody what I was doing and where we were going. And I started asking intentional questions. And I became a person, I ask questions all the time. Every day I ask questions. And I have found just asking questions will take you on exciting journeys more than anything else. You excel in that, Ken. I've watched you over the years. You'd excel really in that. But for my early years, I didn't ask enough questions, and so therefore, I didn't get enough ideas and thoughts from others. So when people say, I want to be more creative, what's step one? Step number one is ask more questions. Just go to people and start asking questions. It's amazing what you'll learn.
I do believe that organizations, human organizations, are inherently unstable. They will fall over, and you have to work to keep them upright. But they fall slowly. Most people don't notice it. They let their success blind them. They don't see it falling over. The falling takes place slow, but the collapse is quick. You have to do constant assessment. You have to look for the hard truths.
Can I be honest with you? They cut me 6 times down my left eye, 1 time across the left side of my neck, 1 time across the right side of my neck, twice through my right ribs, cut out my right pec, bottom of my armpit to the bottom of my hand, 350 staples in my body, and they bandaged me from my neck to my knees. This is not lip service. And I gotta be honest with you, it was days to where if I could have laid there, I would have laid there. But my spirit said that's not who you are. My mentality said that's not who you are. Like, I don't know about you all, but I'm a fighter, man. I fight for my goals. I fight for my dreams. I fight for the things that I represent and the things I'm a part of. And I dare you, the things that you do, the things that you're a part of, and the things that you're connected to, I dare you every single day to show up and give everything you got to. I dare you every single day when you wake up, you understand you represent something a lot greater than yourself. I dare you to go with 15, represent it, give everything you got to it. Go home to your family, go to your careers, give everything you got to every aspect of your life. And I dare you to watch what happens with your mentality. As a matter of fact, like my 5-year-old son tells me, I double dog dare.
And you know what everybody wants to hear? What they already believe to be true. And so the last thing they want to hear is an original idea that contradicts their belief system. So it's very hard to even bring that kind of stuff up. But those are the things, those are the only things that you believe that everybody around you doesn't believe, when you're right, that create real value in the world. Everything else people already know. There's no value created. It's just business as usual. So it's so important to think for yourself.
I was a very headstrong young person, and by 1983 or 4 had started my own publishing company to publish my own books, realizing that no one else will publish me, and I was right about that. And so my first book, I saved my food money from Black Flag, little here, little there, and I saved enough to make a fold and staple book. I couldn't type, so I hand wrote out the things, and I made a dummy that I could offset, print, fold, and staple. And I sold them for $2. Mainly gave them away, but I sold enough, and they blew out. 500 just went. And then I took that money to make another print run of that. And from that money, I made my first paperback. And 33 years later, that's a fully staffed company with books in translation and hardcover editions and the whole, the whole 9 yards. But it started with, I'm going to do my thing. I'll be City Lights Jr. without the talent. And I did that at the same time I was doing my first spoken word gigs. And why did I have the gumption and the audacity to start my own book company? Because I come from punk rock. I come from watching Ian MacKaye invent Discord records on his mom's kitchen table. I come from folding and gluing picture sleeves together. Black Flag had their own label. Of course you do it yourself. You want to make a book? Sit down and write it. Then go to the printing place. Where's a printer? Get in the phone book and find a printer. We make records, make some books. You just do it. It's like you don't even think about it, you just do it. And I'm sure that writing is just awful, but I did it. And without even hesitation, I'm making my own book company. Stop me, I dare you. I never thought about it twice. Just because DIY, man. Like, let your voice be heard.
How do you think about making a decision when everyone tells you this is a crazy idea? Or where do you get the internal strength to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things,
like people shouldn't think, people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like there'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Yeah, actually something that can be helpful is fatalism, to some degree. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear. When starting SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%. And I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress. If we could just move the ball forward, even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that would still do some good. Yeah, same with Tesla. I thought the odds of a car company succeeding were extremely low.
Yeah, I started working at this video store, was pretty much what you're talking about around that time, and it was great at first because I'd always hated day jobs and stuff, and so I got a day job and it ended up being pretty good. But admittedly, I was there for 5 years. At a certain point, it was a narcotic. All right, I didn't have to keep pursuing my dreams because, it's not what I want to do, but it's sort of kind of close. And if I didn't have an artist soul burning in me, I could have made myself happy with that. I could, if I didn't have an artist soul burning to get out, I could have, walked backwards a couple steps and just done that. And it would have been a fulfilling, well, to anybody else, it would have been a fulfilling life. It wouldn't have been for me because I would have known I would have had something to say that I didn't get a chance to say. But it did put me to sleep for a while. And I've always just thought, what really got everything kind of truly going for me, you could point out a lot of different things, but the bottom line is the fact that I realized that even the group of people I hung around with, they were all great fellas and great gals. But, it was easy for me to think that I was doing a lot because I was doing more to try to move myself forward than they were. But, that's not, okay, I'm a big fish in a puddle. So what? All right, they're not doing anything. All right, so yeah, I'm doing more than them. But I realized that actually I need to get my ass out to Hollywood and meet other people who are, like in my category or working a little higher, and I should be the weakest link in my chain that I have, and that'll make me be stronger. It'll make me run faster. Like an analogy I've always used is, all right, if you run the 100-yard dash with people that can't run as fast as you, yeah, you'll win. Hands down, you know that. But if you run with people much faster than you, all right, yeah, you might come in last every single time, but your time will be better. Because they're making you run all the faster. They're making you dig down just a little bit more. It doesn't matter that you won, your time is faster. And that's what I knew I had to do. I had to get out of Loserville and throw myself into a place where, like, this is what I do for a living.
I have an old-fashioned belief that I should expect to make money in things that I understand. And when I say understand, I don't mean understand, what the product does or anything like that. I mean, understand what the economics of the business are likely to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now. I know, in general, what the economics of, say, Wrigley chewing gum will look like 10 years from now. The internet isn't going to change the way people chew gum. It isn't going to change which gum they chew. You know, if you own the chewing gum market in a big way, and you've got Double Mint and Spearmint and Juicy Fruit, those brands will be there 10 years from now. So I can't pinpoint exactly what the numbers are going to look like on Wrigley, but I'm not going to be way off if I try to look forward on something like that. That evaluating that company is within what I call my circle of competence. I understand what they do, I understand the economics of it, I understand the competitive aspects of the business. So figuring out the economic consequences, TV, I think there's, I don't know, 20, 25 million sets a year sold in the United States. I don't think there's one of them made in the United States anymore. I mean, you'd say TV set manufacturer, what a wonderful business. I mean, everybody, you know, nobody had a TV in 1950, or thereabouts, 45 to 50. Everybody has multiple sets now, but nobody in the United States has made any real money making the sets. They're all out of business. You know, the Magnavoxes, the RCAs, all of those companies. Radio was the equivalent of the 20, over 500 companies making radios in the 1920s. Again, I don't think there's a U.S. radio manufacturer at the present time. But Coca-Cola, you know, what was it, 1884 at Jacobs Pharmacy or whatever, the fellow comes up with something. A lot of copiers over the years, but now you've got a company that is selling roughly 1.1 billion 8-ounce servings of its product, not all Coke, Sprite, and some others, daily throughout the world 117 years later. So understanding the economic characteristics of a business is different than predicting the fact that an industry is going to do wonderfully. And so when I look at the internet businesses, or I look at tech businesses, I say this is a marvelous thing, and I love to play around on the computer, and now I order my books from Amazon and all kinds of things, but I don't know who's going to win. And unless I know who's going to win, I'm not interested in investing. I'll just play around on the computer. And defining your circle of competence is the most important aspect of investing. It's not how important, how large your circle is. You don't have to be an expert on everything. But knowing where the perimeter of that circle of what you know and what you don't know is, and staying inside of it, is all important. Tom Watson Sr., who started IBM, said in his book, he said, "I'm no genius," he said, "but I'm smart in spots, and I stay around those spots." And you know, that is the key. So if I understand a few things, and I stick in that arena, I'll do okay. And if I don't understand something, but I get all excited about it because my neighbors are talking about it, and stocks are going up and everything, I start fooling around someplace else, eventually I'll get creamed, and I should.
To come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. You know, for me, as the leader of our franchise and the leader of my household and the leader of so many, you know, different things, I think it's the confidence, but it's also you practicing what you preach. I'm not a guy who just talks about it. I actually go out and do it as well, from a basketball perspective or from a leadership perspective with my kids and my foundation. You know, we have a promise initiative where they promise me that they will go to school, they will listen to their teachers, they'll be great to their classmates, and I promise them that I will continue to be a great role model, a father figure for them, and not let those guys down. So I take that responsibility, and I don't just talk about it, I actually do it as well. So when you're able to come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. No matter if it's going good or bad. You know, every day is not a bed of roses. We understand that, and you have to be able to handle adversity as well.
Because if you build something for yourself, if you build something that you love, that you think is sufficiently epic, if you make something that you love, there's probably another billion people in the world that love it as well.
Once you have the passion and thing that you're passionate about now, you can look at other people or other entities or other things or works of art, and you can draw things from that to help you be better at what you do by looking for those common denominators. Johnny wanted to know, how do I prepare? How do I prepare? How do I study? How do I view the game? How do you build your game? And you know, my response is much like the way he builds products. You know, you think sequentially. You know, yeah, you look at this, the end result of what you want to create, but in order to create that, there's so many other little things that go into this massive entity device. It's no different than building my basketball game. You start with, what do you want your game to be? What would make your game most unstoppable or hard to deal with? And now you work backwards from there. And you start building it one piece at a time, one move at a time, one counter at a time. So there's a lot of similarities there.
I think great entrepreneurs must have the curiosity to kind of metaphorically see around the corner. What's coming? What can I anticipate that other people don't see? And then you must have the courage of your convictions to execute the strategy.
There were other things that I probably should have done, not from my perspective. I mean, from my point of view, I did the right things. Every film that I've done, I'm happy that I made that choice. I don't have any regrets whatsoever. But I mean, in terms of sustaining box office, bankability, I should have done a few other things that I didn't do, but I'm glad I didn't do them, me.
Because it wouldn't have been you.
Yeah, it would have been for the wrong reasons. Everything that I've been lucky enough to do, I did for the right reasons.
Connecting increases your influence in every situation. For the foundation of the teaching today, I want to make sure that we really have a grasp of why connecting with people is so vital. So if you'll go to the very first sentence in your note, the number one criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is an ability to communicate effectively. That I do believe. I think the ability to connect and communicate is the number one criteria for success with your family, with your marriage, with your children, with your friends, in the workplace, the marketplace, in the community. If you have the ability to connect with people, if you can communicate and connect, not just communicate, it takes you and literally gives you and I a decided edge over others in the advancement of what we're trying to accomplish. For example, in your notes, presidential historian Robert Dallek says that successful presidents exhibit 5 skills and qualities that enable them to achieve things that others don't. So he's talking about leaders and presidents and people. What makes some achieve better than others? Here's the 5 things they do well. Number 1 is vision. Number 2, pragmatism. Number 3, consensus building. The ability to put together a team and get consensus. Number 4, charisma. And number 5, trustworthiness. Being a trustworthy kind of a person. Now, what is interesting about these five things that set the better presidents apart from maybe the average ones, 4 of the 5 deal with connecting. Vision is definitely a connecting skill, the ability to cast a future vision. Consensus building, getting people to work together. You have to be able to connect to do that. Charisma, of course, that's why people follow the quote, the Pied Piper, and trustworthy. 4 of the 5 of the skills needed to be successful as a leader had a lot to do with connecting. So let me define connecting, because that's what this book is all about. Connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in such a way that it increases our influence with them. In other words, we can identify with them until they say, he or she understands exactly what I know and what I'm going through, and we can relate with them until because of that ability, we begin to increase our influence with them. And of course, what do I teach about leadership? Very simple, leadership is influence.
Basically, the theory is we're all born thinking like entrepreneurs. You know, like when we crawl and we fall, when we're trying to walk, we figure it out. Entrepreneurs always figure out, you're born thinking like an entrepreneur, that, you know what, I'm going to figure this out regardless, and I'm going to keep going. Now, often the challenge is families and friends convince you not to be an entrepreneur, because when you say, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to be the most famous person, I'm going to save the seals, they say, don't do that. It didn't happen before. Yeah. It's never happened. You're gonna fail. You're gonna embarrass us.
They put the limiters on it.
They put the limiters on.
Yeah.
They put the blinders on you. But true entrepreneurs will just keep figuring it out.
You have to realize that whatever your day is, whatever you're doing, whatever your job is, whatever people think of you or project you to be, none of it matters, really, until you look around and see people who are in need. And I think probably the best benefit of my job is to help, to make people smile, who otherwise wouldn't or couldn't have a smile on their face. So, yeah, that's my deal.
Everyone has a problem with time, but the day has 24 hours, and we sleep 6. Now, I know there's some out there that say, whoa, I need 8. Well, I say just sleep a little faster, because the bottom line is we have 6 hours of sleep, 24 hours are available, so you have 18 hours now available to your work, your family, your hobbies, and also to learn something new or to do something new, which could easily be that you want to learn a new language, or that you want to read as a New Year's resolution, I have to read a book every week, or you say, I'm gonna go and reshape my body. So you're gonna go and take this hour out of your schedule and say, I'm gonna train an hour every day. So this is, for most people, a huge challenge, but it is totally doable, I can tell them, because the kind of things that I did when I came to this country, I mean, I went to school, I was working in construction, I was working out my 5 hours a day, I was taking acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight. I was doing all of those things. I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste one single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time, you make the time.
Yeah, you just gotta have the fearlessness to really take those shots, because you miss those shots, then you have to deal with the criticism, you have to deal with
us talking about it, right?
Right. So, and a lot of times, a lot of people kind of get a little apprehensive about taking those shots because of that.
Right when we mentioned it, it seemed like you started smiling already, just thinking about the word.
Yeah, well, it's always been a myth to me as to why certain people don't really like those situations because of the pressure, because we've all lost games before. So it's not like by you missing that shot, you're about to face something that you will never face again or haven't faced in the past, you know what I mean? We've all come up short at one time or another. So you just gotta kind of let it all hang out and trust your skills and trust the work that you've put in.
There are some mountains that can be climbed by people like you and me. We got to get a little bit better condition, but I mean, it's not like the mountain climber mountains that would be way beyond our skill level. But some of these mountains that can be climbed by you and me, it takes a day to get to the top, and then you just camp up there and you come down the next day. And on many of these places in Switzerland where you can do that, about halfway up the mountain is what they call the halfway house, halfway up the mountain. So a group of people starts off with a guide in the morning, and about noon, you're kind of tired, you've been walking now for 4 or 5 hours, and you're coming up to the halfway house, and it's just it's a wonderful sight. Because as soon as you enter in the halfway house, you can smell the food, and they're getting ready for a good lunch, and you sit down, there's a fire in the fireplace, and there's nice soft chairs, and you can just rest your body and refresh your body. And so the people go into the halfway house, and they eat and laugh and enjoy and just really just kind of take in that wonderful, refreshing atmosphere. About an hour and a half after being in the halfway house, the guide gets up and says, well, gang, it's time to put on your gear. We got to hike. We got to get on up to the top. This is a fact. About half the people decide not to go on up to the top. They're sitting around the table and they're just saying, you know what, go on up. You're going to be coming by here tomorrow. You're going to be having lunch here again tomorrow. We're just going to hang here. And so the people that want to get to the top, they put their stuff on and they kind of leave. And the rest of the people sit behind. They eat a little bit more food, get around the piano, sing some songs, get around the fireplace, enjoy the fire, warm themselves by the fire. And all have play games all afternoon, kind of enjoy themselves. But about 4:30, 4:45 in the afternoon, without anybody saying a word, the people who stayed in the halfway house, they slowly go over to where the window is, the big window, and they start looking outside, and they start looking up at the top of that mountain, and as they look at the top of that mountain, they see their friends. Their friends are now getting the tents out, and they're getting ready to prepare for the night, and it becomes very quiet, very somber, because everybody in the halfway house realizes the mistake they've made. They've sold their mission for a little bit of comfort for a few hours. Next morning, down come their friends, and by noon, they come into the halfway house. And when they come in the halfway, they are laughing, they're high-fiving, they're talking about what they've seen, where they've been, experiences, the fact that it was almost impossible to get up there. In fact, they had to help each other get up there, and how they joined teams and held hands, and they're just telling all these stories and talk about the pictures they've taken, and they got the group picture up there with the flag at the top, and the people who remain behind, they don't say much. They just eat their lunch and then follow the rest of them down to the bottom of the hill where their friends are waiting for them. And those who paid the price and went to the top, who understood now is the time to reach the mission, they hug and tell stories and celebrate. And the others, they just kind of slip off and get in their car and go home, because they realize they're never going to be what they wanted to be. They're never going to see what they wanted to see. They're never going to do what they wanted to do, because they failed to realize when they're at the halfway house, now's the time to rest, and they go on.
You need to focus on solutions, not ideas. All of us here are really creative, and we come up with loads of ideas throughout the day, and we become really excited about that. And it's like, dude, we should start a company around that. But that's when you actually go to the other side, where you talk to, where you find out what someone actually a problem that they have and solve that, is when real value comes out.
I think my biggest tip is just get started. I meet a lot of young entrepreneurs who have good ideas or bad ideas or some ideas, and you don't want to be a person who just talks and talks and talks. You have to actually go and do something. And don't worry about if it's the perfect thing or not. There is this myth of entrepreneurship that you'll have the one genius idea and suddenly everything falls into place. It doesn't work like that. It's a hard slog. There's a lot of things to do wrong, a lot of things you'll do right. The sooner you get started, the sooner you'll get somewhere.
Optimism has a place, but I think even more so for the first-time entrepreneur, you need to be pragmatically pessimistic. What I mean by that is you need to define all of the worst-case scenarios in terms of financial loss, time loss, etc. Look at what you will learn if that happens and accept and come to terms with that before you ever start. If you don't do that and you go straight into battling the world, trying to conquer the world with rose-colored glasses on, the first time you hit a major hiccup, you're going to become really demoralized and you will quit.
And I think, where is the opportunity? The opportunity always lies in the place where people complain. Some people sit there complain, you think, if I can solve that complaint, that's the opportunity.
My dream was for to be able to one day, hear rappers that I looked up to on the radio and be like, yo, what if Jay-Z, whoever, what if they heard of me? What if they thought I was dope? You know what I'm saying? That was where my mentality always was with it.
And I think the reality is just, not quite so glamorous. There's there's an ugly side to being an entrepreneur. And also just more importantly, what you're actually spending your time on is just a lot of hard work. Sam mentioned this, but you're basically just sitting at your desk, heads down, focused, answering customer support emails, doing sales, figuring out hard engineering problems. So it's really important that you kind of go in with eyes wide open.
I would say that the lesson learned for me to anybody else out there interested in starting a business is please find something you're passionate about, because it's so much work, it's so much time, it's so much effort. But if the subject matter is something that you genuinely love to be involved with, it's not going to be that big of a drag, and it's not going to be that much work. It's going to be incredibly exciting and rewarding, because to your point, you'll feel like you're living the life that you're meant to live.
ESPN called me. They did a story on me this past summer, but they called me one day, and I picked up the phone. They said, "Is this Inky Johnson?" I said, "Last time I checked, I'm Inky Johnson." They said, "Is this the same guy that said if you could change what happened to you, you wouldn't?" I said, "Absolutely." They said, "It's our understanding the game of football meant the world to you." I said, "At one point, it did." They said, "It's our understanding that your family was banking on you making it to the NFL so they can have a better way of life." I said, "Yep, that's correct." They said, "We're coming to see you." I said, "All right, cool, come on." They said, "But we don't want to see you in Atlanta. We want to see you in Neyland Stadium on the exact yard line where your life changes. The same time of day. The only thing that won't be present is Air Force's team." I said, "All right, cool." And so they take me to Neyland Stadium. They put me on the exact yard line where my life changed. They said, "Now tell your younger self why you wouldn't stop your injury if you could. If you could be in the NFL right now making millions of dollars, tell your younger self why you wouldn't change that situation if you could." And I say the reason I wouldn't change it, believe it or not, it has nothing to do with me. Like on a personal level, he thought I was going to say, because of the man that I've become, the perspective that I've acquired, my faith has been fortified. He thought I was going to say something like that. I said, no, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the lives that have been affected by the result of the process and the thing that I represent in the world. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think perseverance. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think don't quit. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think that's a quality individual right there. What my character represents in the world. And every single day we're putting something out like that represents something. When people see that, they think it's a thought that comes to the mind. When he said gold standard, he gave me that, I felt a certain type of way. When he gave me the gold standard, I felt a certain type, I felt different. Gold standard, I felt like that went with me. Because I think in what I do, the line of business I'm in, I'm the gold standard. Because I don't compromise. And every single day, I'm going to give you my very best. You can bet your bottom dollar. Every single day, I'm going to bring that gold standard to life. And I'm not just bringing it in one aspect of life. I'm bringing it in every single aspect of life. I'm not going to be one of these people in the world that's a public success, but they're a private failure. Meaning they give everything they got to one aspect of life, but the other areas, they lack off. No, I'm going to give every single thing I got to every aspect of my life because I represent something. When people see me, they think something. Whether that's character, never giving up, never surrendering. And the thing that we can never do is forget what we represent. Because that's how guys end up under a bridge on a cardboard box sleep. They forget what they represent when life hits them with adversity. My only charge for you, never forget what you represent.
The two things we really zero in on people are, two things. They sound simple, they end up being very difficult. Courage and genius. Courage is the one we talk about a lot because it's the one that people can learn. Courage, which is to say not giving up in the face of adversity, just being absolutely determined to succeed, is something that you can like force yourself to do. It can be very painful. You can force yourself to do it. The genius part is a little bit hard to force yourself to do. Courage without genius might not get you where you need to go, but genius without courage almost certainly won't.
Just do my work. For me, I've always been very utilitarian on all of this stuff, and that's what coming from punk rock gave to me, where I don't feel like I'm anybody, and someone wants me to sign something, I'm like, sure. I don't exactly understand why, but I'll do it for you. I don't think I'm anything.
Maybe it's also not just because of the punk rock mentality, it's also because you were scooping ice cream not so long ago, and maybe there's an element of insecurity in you that unless you keep working and keep striving, you could end up back there.
Oh, I kind of figure that's eventual. I keep moving forward boldly because I have nothing to lose. I'm nobody from nowhere. You should really understand that. I am from the minimum wage working world 100 years ago. But I don't ever have it in my head that that's any more than one tour away of coming back. And so I like to work. It's not about money or fame or anything. It's about activity and challenge.
I feel like the odds was against us, from the summer. We just had so many things going with our team. We shuffled in different lineups. We shuffled in different players. We made a trade at the deadline. And I can't sit here right now and say that that the finals was a part of my thinking. It was not. And even when you saw me at one point early in the season, I think it was in December or January, and you was looked at me like, okay, Mona, I know you, what you doing. And it's crazy because right before you seen me, I had already kind of hit that switch. I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do with this ball club. We're not playing good basketball, but you can't sell yourself short. But to sit here, I can't even lie to you, sit here and say I'm will we be a part of the finals? I would be definitely lying to you if I said, yes, we would be in the finals in January or February.
Yeah, you didn't think that that was the case at all?
It was at points where it was like, okay, will the Cavs even make the playoffs? You know, and I was like, okay, I'm not selling it for that conversation. Now that's ridiculous. Now I got to get into the postseason, and I've always said, if I get into the postseason, no matter if I'm a 1 seed or 8 seed, or in this case, a 4 seed, I believe that we can do something. And look at it, we did something. We did something.
We know from our past experiences that big things start small. The biggest oak starts from an acorn.